Hi everyone, welcome to today's lesson on rudiments of music, grade 1. And today we'll be considering degree names of major scale and simple interval above the tonic. My name is Stephen Iyamja. And just before we move ahead to today's lesson, we just have to do a quick recap from last lesson, of which we learned the tonic triad in the key of D major using the first, third, and the fifth note of the key of D, of which we have D, which is our roots and tonic, and we have F, which is the third from D, and A, which is the fifth from D, giving us our triad. And we could see that F, C are sharpened in the key of D major. And also in the key of F major, F, which is the roots and the tonic, we have A as the third from F, and C as the fifth from F, and that gives us our triad for the key of F. Of course, we have just F being sharpened in the key of G. Right into today's topic, which is the degree names of major scale. So just as often and usual, we call the first degree Do, the second Re, the third Mi, the fourth the Fa, the fifth So, the sixth La, the seventh Ti, and back to the first in an octave, the Do. There are also other names for these degrees, other names for this note. And the first one is the tonic. The tonic is a very, very strong um, note amongst all of these degrees. That is the first. So regardless of whichever key you are playing on, be it B flat, A flat, A major, G major, C major, D flat, the first note is your tonic. So for example, if you're playing on the key of F, F becomes your first note, it becomes your tonic. If you're playing on the key of G, G becomes your tonic. You're playing on the key of E flat, E flat becomes your tonic. So wherever you find E flat, that is your tonic in that key of E flat you're playing or singing on. And then I will move to the fifth degree, which is another important degree, and that is the dominant. The dominant. That is the fifth. And then the fourth is the subdominant. So that is just before the dominant. Further classes, maybe in grade 2, grade 3, we'll be able to explain further why the fifth is the dominant, then the fourth subdominant, the tonic, and what have you. Then I'll move down to the third, which is the mediant, and then the sixth degree, the submediant, and then to the second, which is the supertonic, super, of course, above the tonic, and then the seventh, which is the leading note. So it is the leading note because it's just the note before the tonic. So the tonic is usually the landing point. So the seventh note actually leads down to the landing. So the first degree we have the tonic, the second degree we have the supertonic, the third degree we have the mediant, the fourth we have the subdominant, the fifth the dominant, the seventh we have the submediant, the sixth we have the submediant, and the seventh we have the leading note, and back to the first, which is the tonic. So we can see from here the first, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, and this eighth note is just the repetition of the first. So we have tonic, supertonic, mediant, subdominant, dominant, submediant, leading note, and a tonic in the next octave. And just like I said, earlier, regardless the key you are playing on, the first note of that key becomes your tonic. So this is the key of C. The first note here, C, becomes your tonic. If you're playing on the key of F sharp becomes your first note, and that becomes your tonic. So in a piece like this on F sharp, whenever you see F sharp like this one, it is also your tonic. If you're playing on the key of B flat here becomes your tonic, becomes your starting point. It becomes your number one note. So even when you get to other notes below or above the B flat, anywhere on that piece, regardless, so long the key has not changed, there've not been any transition, there've not been any movement, that becomes your tonic. And then every other note follows suit. So for instance, if you're playing on the key of E major becomes your tonic, F sharp becomes your supertonic, G sharp becomes your mediant, A becomes your subdominant, B your dominant, and C becomes your mediant, and D sharp becomes your leading note down to E, which is your tonic. So just like I mentioned earlier, the eighth note does not have a name because it's usually a repetition of the first note. So that is your tonic. So regardless what pitch that note has fallen into, a higher pitch, a lower pitch, it remains your tonic anywhere. So when you're singing or playing on a piece, wherever you have the first note, it's still the first note anywhere. It could appear in an octave, but still the first note. So from here we have the first, second, the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and the first note again in a higher octave. Second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, and the sixth. So we'll move right into the second part of today's lesson, which is the simple interval above the tonic. Remember, a tonic is the first note, regardless of what key you are playing on or singing on. So an interval in music is the distance in pitch between two notes, measured as a number. The interval is counted from the lower note to the higher one, with the lower note counted as 1. So literally, an interval is the distance or the difference between point A and point B, between the origin and the destination. But in music, the point A is being counted as 1, and the point B, which is the destination, is also being counted as a number. Literally, if you're counting on a normal circumstance, let's say the difference or the distance or the interval between 4th of September to 10th of September, we don't count 4th, we say 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and that gives us 6. But in music, 4th, which is the origin, is being counted. So in music, if we're counting the interval between 4th of September to 10th of September, it will give us 7 because we're counting 4th as 1, then 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10. That gives us 7. So that's how we count in music. We count the first note and we count the last note. So we have two types of interval, the melodic interval and the harmonic interval. What comes to your mind when you hear melody and when you hear harmony? So the melodic interval that's sounded or played separately, one note before another note. While the harmonic interval is when you play two or more notes together. So let's say you have the first note, the third note, and the fifth note being played together or being sounded together. So just like what you have here, this is a melodic interval because you hit this note, which is a C, before you hit the second note, which is E. So they are being played separately. While on this harmonic interval, they are being played or sounded together. And this is like playing a C and E together. So it's just like when you're singing in part and the soprano is singing E and the say alto is singing C, and they're singing it at the same time. That gives harmony because you can hear both notes at the same time forming harmony. But when you're playing, let's say the violin for instance, you play one note before the next note. You play a C before a D before E. So that's the difference between melodic interval and harmonic interval. So when we count interval in music, we count from the lower notes to the higher notes. So for to decide what's the interval between C and E, we start counting from C, which is 1, D, which is 2, and E, which is 3. So we count C as 1, D as 2, E as 3. So the interval between C and E, excuse me, is 3. So looking at this picture here, it just gives us like a clear pictorial view on how to count. So the first note here, which is on the line, is 1, the second one is 2, and the third one in line is 3, as against counting maybe from the space to the line. Now if we count 4 letters, the interval is going to be the fourth interval. So let's look at what's the interval between C and G. So C and G, this is C, D, E, F, and the second line here is G. So we count C as 1, the space 2, the line 3, the space 4, and the line which is G as 5. So the interval between C and G is 5. And that also goes on for any key you're singing or playing on or you're using. When once you're being able to identify the tonic, be it, let's say for instance F. So if we're doing on the key of F, I know I've not got that picture yet, but F is just the first space on the treble staff. So for finding the interval between F and let's say A, so we count F as 1, G as 2, A as 3. So the interval between F and A is 3. Remember, we're counting from the lower notes to the higher notes. I hope that's clear to everyone. Now, if we count 8 notes and arrive back at the same letter, the interval is called an octave. 8 octave, 8 octagon. So we have in music we have 7 letters of the alphabet, which is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then when we get to the 8th one would be a repetition of the first. So that's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. So the 8th note is usually a repetition of the first note in a higher octave. And also, if two notes are on the same pitch, it is called the unison. So the unison is more like when one note and another note are placed on the same pitch level. So it's called the unison. It's just, for instance, when every part of a choir are singing the same note on the same pitch level. No harmony, just on the same pitch level. It's called unison. So of course when you look at this, the interval between this note and this note, it's more like 0. So it's a unison because it's the same pitch level, the same note. Now we can see the second interval, that is the line, the space, let's say fourth interval 1, the space 2, the line 3, the space 4. And also look at this 7 interval, The interval of this is 7. That's from C. Here we have space 2, line 3, space 4, line 5, space 6, and line 7. So this is like from C to B. Now coming down to this octave, like I said, using the um, seven letters of the alphabet, we have C here. Of course, this is a middle C, and we have D, we have E, F, G, A, B, and back to C. So if we count, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, or 7, 8. So this becomes an octave. This note is a repetition of this in a higher pitch in the next octave level. So this is a tonic from previous part of this lesson. This is the tonic, and this is also another tonic. So it's called an octave, the eighth note in music. So looking at this, it says just for clarity and readability, harmonic unison and second are written a bit different. So one has to be careful when trying to read the difference between the harmonic unison and a second interval. So for harmonic notes are represented above each other because they sound the same, while melodic are written like side by side because it's one note, the next note, so it's one note after the other note. So now on this, looking at this, this is like a second interval. This is 1 and this is 2. But then if we were to write harmonic interval, which usually harmonic interval, you have the note written just above each note. Yeah, if you put this note having the same pitch on this one, you're almost not able to read it. So therefore, it's written just beside the note to indicate harmonic interval. So not to confuse it with second interval. So you have 1, we have 1 still. So these two notes are on the line. If the second note was on the space, then it would be second and not unison. So unison is the same note and the second is too close to write directly above, so we have to move this note to the side just a little. So just for clarity. So just like I explained in previous slide, if you try to write a second interval directly above, you will produce something unreadable like this. So for instance, if you want to write um, harmonic unison, so for unison, for harmonic interval, notes are being placed above um, notes because they are sounded or played together. So they are being placed just above notes. So if you have 3 notes here for harmonic interval, you have one, you have another, depending either on the line or on the space. But when it's unison, where they are on the same pitch, if you put a note above another note, you are almost not able to read it. So for example, this is meant to be a unison, which is 2 notes on the same pitch, but you're almost not able to tell if one is on the space or both of them are on the line. So that's why it is advisable when you write unison, it's like this, side by side. So this is clear. You can be able to tell that you're able to tell that this is a second interval because you have one on the line and another on the space. But for unison, if you put this note on this same line, you're either going to address this as one note and you're not able to decipher or distinguish um, where each note is placed. So for unison, notes are being placed side by side, while for maybe um, second interval, it's one note on the line, another one on the space, and it's been clear this way. So you just need to take note of that. So another dicey one here is the interval between the key notes of a major scale and the unison, the fourth, the fifth, or octave of that scale is called a perfect interval. So like I said, this is a bit could be a, this could be a little conflicting to explain, but then just have it at the back of your mind that unison is perfect, fourth interval is perfect, fifth interval is perfect, and the octave, which is the eighth, is also perfect. Somewhat, this note, in terms of construction of triads, they don't need, they don't need either for you to diminish or to augment, for you to reduce by a semitone or to increase by a semitone, for you to be able to get triad for fourth, the triad for fifth, triad for of course the unison and the octave are almost similar because it's more like the same note, but this is like a difference in pitches. So here the interval between the key note of a major scale and the second, the third, the sixth, and the seventh or octave of that scale is called a major interval. Now let's look at this very well. Now we can tell this is a second, we can tell this is a third, one, the line two, and the space three. Now they are called major. Like I said, it's for grade one, it's a bit conflicting to explain this. But then when you're constructing your triad, which consists of intervals as well, you may need like a diminished to remove or to minus a semitone from the third majorly to be able to get this note. So they are not perfect in terms of constructing triadic, maybe chords, harmonic interval. They are not perfect. You need to either augment or diminish. So this is a major second, major third, major sixth, major seventh. So just have it at the back of your mind that the first, which is the unison, is perfect. Fourth is perfect fourth. You have perfect fifth, and you have perfect octave. While on the other hand, you have major second, major third, major sixth, major seventh. So that is to say, second is not perfect, is major. Why fourth is not major, it's perfect. So you call it perfect fourth, perfect fifth, and you call this major third, major second. On major scale, when we get into minor scale, it has its own intricacies as well. So that will leave as we proceed further in other grades. So just from here, you see this is P1, which means perfect 1, perfect tonic, remember, and you can see they are placed side by side for clarity and readability. Instead of putting both of them on the same line for readability, you put the notes beside the other note. Then this is major second, you can tell this second interval, major third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, major sixth, major seventh, and perfect octave. I hope that's clear to everyone. And finally, let's just have a quick recap of what we've learned today, this lesson. So we talked about the degree names. The first degree is the tonic, the second degree is the supertonic, the third degree is the mediant, the fourth degree is the subdominant, the fifth degree is the dominant, the sixth degree is the submediant, and the seventh degree is the leading note, and back to the first degree, which is the tonic, and that could be in an octave. And say an octave is the eighth note. So when you count from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, either in alphabet or in degree, when you get to the eighth note, which is a repetition of the first note, is called an octave. We talked about the interval above tonic. So regardless of what key you're playing on, if you're playing on the key of E flat becomes your tonic. F sharp becomes your tonic. If you're playing on the key of G becomes your tonic, and that is your first note. So we talked about interval is the distance between two notes or pitches. And we say we have two types of interval, basically or fundamentally, which is the harmonic interval and the melodic interval. Harmonic interval are played or sounded together, just like you have in church. We have soprano, alto, tenor, and bass singing all at the same time to produce harmony. You're hearing them as one. Why melodic interval are played or sounded separately, it's just like you playing the piano and picking one note after another note, and put together it gives you a melodic song. We count our interval from the lower note to the higher note. If you take note of that, from C, D, E, F, G, fifth interval, or from F, G, A. If you're playing on the key of F, F becomes your tonic, and you count F, G, A, gives you third interval. So you always count from below. Then the first note is counted as 1, and the last note and the last number makes how much the interval. So like I said, usually when you count from 4 to 10, you count 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and the interval tells you is 6. But in music, you count the first note. So that means when you count from 4 to 10, the interval will be 7, because 4 is 1, then 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, which is 7. The unison, the fourth, and the fifth are called perfect, and also the octave as well. They are called perfect interval, while the second, the third, the sixth, and the seventh are called major interval on a major scale. To take note of that, so you don't get confused when we're dealing with minor scale. So I believe today's class been helpful, a bit comprehensive, and I hope you had a good grasp of what has been taught today. Do feel free to ask any question as regards to degree names or simple interval above a tonic. Thank you very much.